This is Dr. Peter Breggin, and this is another in my Simple Truths about psychiatry. Now I want to talk to you about the overall catastrophe of approaching our children as if they need drugs and need diagnoses. We have a new cultural phenomena. Children who walk through the halls of their schools may look around and see passing by them kids that are obviously drugged. Almost all young people know people who are on psychiatric drugs. 20% of our boys, at least in high school, have been diagnosed with ADHD and are being given drugs. Much larger percentage over time will be diagnosed, and at least somebody will try to medicate them. What is this all about? Well, it's about the pharmaceutical industry going into cahoots with psychiatry and marketing drugs to teachers and parents to give to children. It's the most successful marketing campaign one could imagine. But what are the consequences morally and educationally for our society? They're a disaster. We now have parents believing that their children are incorrigible. Really, maybe 20-30% of our families or more thinking kids can't be normally raised, that they can't learn to discipline their kids, they can't learn to love their kids and yet manage them. All right. Then we have almost all of our teachers in America thinking that if they could just drug 1, 2, or 3 children in the class, that everything would be fine. Then we have children growing up into adults who think they're defective and think they need psychiatric drugs. And then there's something even worse than that, which is what is happening when we follow up these children 25 and 30 years later, when they're in their 30s and their 40s. Well, we now have that data. My wife Ginger and I have been tracking through a series of articles that have been coming out. What happens to the ADHD boys? Just kids with mild hyperactivity started on Ritalín a few decades ago. Well, it's a disaster. They become, many of them become career mental patients, taking multiple psychiatric drugs. We have very good studies showing that more of them become addicted to cocaine than ordinary kids who were never put on stimulant drugs, which are very similar to cocaine. They have more incarcerations, more mental hospitalizations, more suicidality. And the saddest truth, perhaps, they have, in many cases, shrinkage of the tissue of their brains, atrophy of their brains. I cover this material in the first half of Psychiatric Drug Withdrawal. I lay out why it is that we shouldn't have children and adults on psychiatric drugs. And in the second half of the book, I talk about how you can get off psychiatric drugs as safely and effectively as possible. We need to reverse this vast cultural experiment, especially drugging our unwitting, involuntary children. Join with me. I have a new article out in a scientific journal called Children and Society, in which I make really clear it's time for those of us who care about our kids to call for a ban on giving them psychoactive substances. Ban psychoactive substances for children. We don't let them smoke dope. We don't let them drink alcohol. At least we try not to let them drink alcohol. We outlaw cigarettes for them. Well, let me tell you, the psychiatric drugs are even more dangerous for children than the drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, or smoking dope, because they lead to lifetime of feeling unable to take care of themselves, needing drugs, and eventually to brain damage. Join me. Call for a ban on giving psychoactive substances to children. Thank you.